Hey everyone, Razmagaming here, back with another video. Here we're going over a TLDR of the patch 11.10 notes. I have a longer video that I will link below this one to fully explain my thoughts about all the changes and what the changes mean. This is a TLDR video if you just want to know what the changes are, and that's it. So, A-Bomb getting a buff at 4 and 5 A-Bomb. Getting more AD, more AP, more AD, more health, gonna be a lot stronger. Cavalier getting a buff at 3 and 4 Cavaliers. Dragon Slayer getting a buff at 4 Dragon Slayer. Forgotten getting a nerf at 6, but a buff at 9. Knight getting a buff at 6. Mystic getting a buff at 4. Verdant getting a buff at 2 and 3. For units, Aatrox getting a buff at 1, 2, and 3 star for his AD scaling on his ability. Leona getting changes. She's going to gain 30 AD but lose tankiness. Her ability is getting nerfed across the board at 1, 2, and 3 star. Lysandra getting nerfed across the board at 1, 2, and 3 star. Damage down and AD reduction at 3 star down. Vayne getting an AD buff, but her ability, the Silver Bolt's true damage ability, going down at 1, 2, and 3 star. Udyr getting an AD buff on his ability at 1, 2, and 3 star. Warwick getting a 3 star AP buff for his, a 3 star damage buff for his ult. For 2-cost champions, Brand 1 getting nerfed, 2 staying the same, 3 getting a buff. Hecarim getting a starting mana buff. LeBlanc 3 star getting a nerf. Set 3 star getting a nerf. Trundle getting a buff at all levels with an attack speed and mana buff. Victor getting a 3 star buff. For 3-cost champions, Katarina getting a buff across all levels with a health buff and 3 star damage buff on her ability. Lee Sin getting a health buff and damage buff on all 3 levels of his ability, 1, 2, and 3 star. Lulu getting a 3 star buff. Pantheon getting a 1, 2, and 3 star AD scaling buff on his ult. Morgana getting a nerf with her ability only hitting 2 hexes instead of 3, but also gaining a Morgana 1 buff on damage. Nidalee gaining a mana buff and Nidalee 3 damage bonus buff. Nocturne bug fix. AD items will now make him heal more. Nunu getting a max mana buff. Riven getting a health buff, a cast time buff on her ult, and an AD scaling buff bonus on her ult. Yasuo getting a 3 star buff on both parts of his ability, and Zyra getting a 3 star buff on her AP on the damage on her ability. Aphelios bug fix, so his ability can now crit, but they're lowering the base damage of the ability and the scaling damage of the ability. Draven getting a mana buff. Ivern getting better AP scaling for Daisy, so Daisy can do more damage. Mordekaiser getting a mana nerf. And Vel getting a stun duration nerf, on her ult. Garen getting a 1 star nerf on his ability. Heimer getting a mana nerf and a turret attack damage nerf. Kindred getting Kindred's Wolf, specifically getting a damage nerf and a healing nerf. This does not affect her big, AoE can't die ability at all. This is only Wolf portion. Teemo 1 getting a buff. For items, both Chalices are getting a 5 AP nerf. Dark Shroud of Stillness no longer affects the wearer, which is a buff. D-Claw is getting a 50 AP buff. 50 MR buff. Eclipse Cape is getting a buff, so it does not burn the unit holding it for as much health. Evil Giant Slayer is getting a buff, so it no longer does less damage to lower health targets. Frozen Darkheart and Frozen Heart are both getting nerfs. Their attack speed slow is going down. Fallen GA is gaining a 10% max health nerf. Ionic Darkspark is gaining less shock damage on allies buff, plus more AP per cast buff. Shadow Locket is getting a 10 armor and MR buff. Sacrificial Gauntlet's getting a rework. It'll no longer work on units that don't cast, such as Vayne and Kled, but it works exact the same on everybody else. Sacrificial Redemption, which is Shadow Redemption, is getting a healing buff and a buff to the self-damage. The Spectral Spear Sojourn is getting a buff for 5% more damage, 5% reduced, 5% damage change. I don't know how to word that one. Titans is getting a buff from 2 AP and AD a stack to 3. Unstable Zerat and regular Zerat are both now going to be working on A-Bomb again, just less effective. Warmog's Sacrificial Armor, which is Shadow Warmog's, is getting a major buff. It will hurt your unit less per second. And Shadow Zeke's is gaining a buff by not taking as much attack speed from its allies. That is the TLDR 5-minute video. If you guys liked it, come see me live at Twitch. I've streamed 6 days a week, 12 to 6, Monday to Friday. Excuse me, Monday to Saturday. Thanks, and have a great night.